2 years after his debut, Galactus would return in the pages of Fantastic Four.
What do you do when Silver Surfer's coming? Got to call Galactus, got to call Galactus. Read your comics!
Thanks for joining me. My name is Daryl, and I am the host of Read Your Comics. This week, I am exploring Fantastic Four issues featuring Galactus. If you tuned in yesterday, you caught my collaboration with West Coast Avengers as we looked at the first appearance of Galactus from FF 48 through 50. Today, I'm going to be looking at 74 through 77, the return of Galactus. Now, I've got these Marvel's Greatest Comics versions here. These issues also appear in that giant Galactus book that Dave and I were showing off in the other video, but that book is so massive, I can't fit it under my camera setup here. So we're going to be looking at these. Now, I will say these do edit out some pages, these reprint copies. You get that newsprint vibe, kind of like feels like the original. You can get these, well, these kind of reader conditions, pretty cheap. But even if you got these in like pristine condition, they're a fraction of the cost of what the original issues are. And of course, they're collected in omnibuses, epic collections, essentials, and so forth. The other thing about these issues that stands out to me, if you've ever read the entire Kirby Stan Lee run of Fantastic Four, it is just a complete explosion of ideas. I usually point to somewhere in the mid-30s is when it really takes off. The characters were fully fleshed out, and they were just zinging ideas out, one right after the other. But it's around this time in the 70s, the issue 70s, that I think Kirby became a little disillusioned with his partnership with Stan. He wasn't getting writing credits for issues that Stan wasn't really doing much to. Earlier reprints were already appearing on the shelf, and Jack wasn't getting any royalties from that, or t-shirts or merch or anything like that. So while he was asking for, some more compensation for this stuff, he was getting denied. And at that point, he kind of decided, he wasn't going to give his all in the writing department. The art of FF never drops off, and these issues are excellent. It's after this, I feel like the story aspects, you start to see a lot of recycled ideas coming through, and maybe more of a hand of what Stan was doing alone as Jack kind of pulled away a little bit. But you can tell that he loves Galactus. It's kind of a special character to him, one of those celestial god type characters. So whenever he did a story featuring Galactus, first in the early FFs, then this return story, and then he takes Galactus into the Thor title and does some great things over there as well with the character. And he really enjoyed playing with Galactus. So you don't see that here, but I just thought it worth noting that after this storyline, it seems like that's when Jack kind of started to pull back. Now, that doesn't mean those issues are bad. They're still good. They're still entertaining. But if you ever take the time to read FF1 through 102, you do notice around the mid number 70s that there's like a slowdown in these explosive ideas. And we know Kirby wasn't out of ideas because he would soon leave to go to DC, where he would do the New Gods, the Demon, Commandy, all that fun stuff later on. But I digress. If you're new to the channel, be aware that I do have a Fantastic Four playlist. You can find it right here, where I've been exploring all different eras of FF as we built up to the First Steps movie. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. I've been saying it a lot, and it still holds true. I get a lot of repeat viewers, and the analytics is saying these are from people that aren't actually subscribed. So eventually YouTube quits feeding you my videos. If you're liking them, please go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any in the future. Let's jump into this one, which would have been 74. The only difference really with these, of course, other than not saying Fantastic Four at the top, they do recolor these covers. So like you get a full colored here, whereas this one was like red and yellow on the original version. And this one too, a little monochromatic. Something I thought was kind of interesting about this one, there is no Fantastic Four on this cover other than up here and in the original in the corner box, but the FF themselves don't actually appear on the cover. This is the return of the Punisher. We saw him in issue 48, kind of a robot creature, not a herald, but like another kind of defense mechanism of Galactus. And that's primarily what this issue is going to be about, is the return of the Punisher. Colored kind of odd here. He's green and has a human face. Reminds me of the design of him. Reminds me of Ram Man from the Masters of Universe. I find that kind of funny, and it makes me really wonder if that is what inspired that character. Is the Punisher from the Kirby Galactus issues. I love this opening page of the Silver Surfer. Now, we've seen quite a bit of the Silver Surfer here. After the original story, he came back for an issue, just kind of fight the thing. And then he came back for a 4-issue arc where Doctor Doom steals his powers. And although he was just kind of imprisoned for most of that storyline, he was around. And he went on after that and left the FF title for the first time to have an encounter with the Hulk. But now he's back in FF. He's meeting up with Alicia, who he has a kind of human bond with coming out of that initial story. I love the lettering up here too. Wynn calls Galactus. And this is one of those pages I always feel like that Kirby can make the mundane seem exciting. I mean, we've just got a figure kind of sitting down contemplating the thing coming in the room. Nobody's getting, punched or zapped but there's still interest that just draws you into the page. So here's where, like, a whole page, well, really some panels got cut out here. So when you read this, it's a little awkward. That Ben's like, yeah, I know what that means. So really, it was about half a page, and the panels got taken out, and they're just kind of trying to condense the story. They kind of take out some of the, you want to say like filler panels, but it wasn't because they felt like the story needed improvement in editing. It was really because Marvel had cut the story page count down to squeeze in more ads. So that's why in these reprint issues, you end up losing a couple of pages of story. But the Silver Surfer is explaining to the Thing that he senses the Punisher on his way back to Earth. And that can only mean that Galactus is returning to reclaim the Silver Surfer. And in these two panels, you get some great space scenes in the eyes of the Silver Surfer, as well as this kind of in the shadow, the Punisher traveling through space to return to Earth. This is an odd panel, though. What's going on with the Silver Surfer's head here? Did his neck disappear? Cut over to the Baxter building where they're doing some repairs. Johnny apparently has been put in charge of some kind of repairs, and he's testing this metal to see if it can withstand his heat. Kind of a interesting way to test it and waste money when the Surfer comes flying in with Ben like riding on the front end. And he explains that Galactus is coming and wants the Surfer to rejoin him. And Johnny's kind of like, well, go with him. You don't want to be on Earth anyway. Just go back. But at the same time, the Surfer is like, well, I don't want to go back to hunting planets again because I would have to eventually find one that is inhabited. And as I've learned my lesson with that, I don't want to do that. But here comes the Punisher. And you can see he's colored, blue. Well, he's got green on him there too, but he's not solid green like he was on the cover here. The Surfer blasts him from a distance, and he must have given everything he has because it kind of makes him stumble. And really, we haven't seen the Surfer, other than when he takes on Galactus, we haven't seen him exert himself very much. Every appearance of the Surfer using his powers, he's overpowered. He's plain and simple. Other than when Doctor Doom like straight up steals it from him while his back is turned, he hasn't broken a sweat. So here he kind of stumbles back, and Ben's, taking off his coat like, I'm going to go take care of that Punisher thing, even though the Surfer just blasted it with everything he had. And then we pretty much just get a throwdown with the Thing and the Punisher. This is whatever the Surfer did to him, kind of encased him in this rocky stuff. And we get some better looks at the Punisher here than we had in the previous appearance. Like his head, I thought these were like goggles, but then it seems like his eyes are down here, or are they up here? I don't know. And these are like kind of horns or antenna of some sort. I mean, it's just one of those alien designs that Kirby came up with. And the Thing gives him a good little battering here, but then he gets pulled up by a force field. So the Punisher's got a little bit more up his sleeve than just being a battering ram. Great shot of being thrown down in this smokestack here. I love that perspective and the way that it's inked too, which this is Joe Sennett on inks pretty much all these later issues. Meanwhile, Johnny's going to give it a go. Reed is trying to convince Sue that they need to get a house outside of the city and kind of separate themselves, or at least for her. This is a period where they really sideline Sue, and in fact, a lot of these reprints, the pages that get cut out, tend to be the Sue pages. And they treat her like so fragile, like because she's pregnant, she can't even know that there's some trouble going on with Ben and Johnny. Crystal just signals to it, and Reed lies to leave. But I don't think that's what Kirby intended. I almost think that's a Stanism because it looks like right here, Crystal's saying something. She's not just signaling. And Stan changed it to, oh, we can't have Sue know what's going on. She barely looks pregnant. More supercharged action. I don't know that anybody's ever done Mr. Fantastic stretching quite as good as Kirby. The Punisher's going to jump in the water and use his power to push water up into the air and extinguish Johnny. I like this panel here. He's getting ready to finish Johnny off, it looks like. But the composition to get all of these figures in the panel, the small panel, is great. Rare instance of a word balloon breaking the panel there. It's like he didn't have enough room to put what he really wanted to put there. And even here, he used his powers to grab Johnny back, and you see his like arms all like wrapped around Johnny to pull him in. The great use of the faded hands here. This is kind of similar to what he did in FF48, where he had his like arms just kind of spinning around in this fist motion. And it sends Mr. Fantastic all whirly-jerly all around. See, look at all these ads. That's what they did in these 70s books. Then we get this awesome splash page of Galactus here. I mean, these two pages make this issue just sing. This Galactus in particular, he's never like smiling. He's never grimacing. Never showing like exertion. Often it seems his face is even like in a little bit of torment almost. I guess it's the hunger that's always doing it to him. Here's his like space platform that he like walks out on, his little balcony of his ship. Now his ship looks a little different right here. A lot of intricate details though. And in this, he's also kind of giving the Silver Surfer credit that without him, he's having trouble finding planets that have the energies he needs to feed. What did he do before the Silver Surfer? And now the G is gone as well. So where those first couple issues, there was like a little inconsistency, a lot of times with coloring, but even the costume changing a little bit, we're getting that more defined, traditional looking Galactus look here. One of the best things about Stan Lee's dialogue, though, in this, even though it's way too verbose at times, he really does give a great voice to the Thing. And I think it's aged well, too, because I've read these with my kids, and they love the Thing. They love the way he talks. They love his wisecracks. Even when he's referencing something that was, pop culture relevant in the 1960s, they still think it's funny. But here the Thing is coming out of that smokestack he was dropped in earlier. He pounds his way out, hitches gets a ride with a taxi. I don't know why the taxi driver is wearing like an army helmet there. It's kind of strange. But he says, "Take me to the Punisher. I don't know anything about a Punisher, but there's something going on down at the waterfront. That must be it. Let's go." Got there pretty quick. Reed's still giving it everything he can. It's clobbering time as the Thing brings down the side of a building. There's always a nice abandoned warehouse around when they need one to drop it on somebody. Great Kirby maneuver here of having the energy of a hit just kind of wide out right there. Like, I guess he's getting hit in the face. And I saw a video with Steve Rude recently, and he was talking about this technique and quoting Kirby saying, if you've ever been punched in the face, that's how it feels, as everything kind of around you goes white for that split second and you can't see or hear anything. And so that's how, Kirby illustrates it that way. Good use of the force field here too on the Punisher. Kind of a little bit of a early Dark Side design on the Punisher there. The way his helmet is. Just pull it back a little bit, and he's got kind of a stone face. And lucky for the three members of the FF here, as they're fighting him, he suddenly disappears. Reed surmises that it's because the Punisher is there for Silver Surfer, hasn't found the Surfer, so Galactus just called him back home. And Galactus is going to send him back to his cubicle. And then he decides he's just going to sit to the edge of the solar system because if he gets too close to Earth, the aroma of the energies of Earth will seduce him into eating it. He won't be able to control himself. Kind of funny, Galactus has lack of willpower. But he's going to shine a light to find where the Surfer is. And with that, we leave with the cliffhanger of the Fantastic Three because Sue is sidelined, and they even sidelined Crystal with him. They even sidelined Crystal with her to be her, like, attendant. Are going to have to find out where the Surfer is to get him to come communicate with Galactus. A neat recoloring on this cover. As I said before, it was basically yellow and red, the original version. I kind of have mixed feelings about this cover. Floating heads are always kind of, fun to look at. There's this, neat like chemistry stuff going on in the background, but there's something about like just a lot of dead space. Maybe it's because I'm looking at it with the Marvel's Greatest Comics and the way the Fantastic Four trade dress would have been on there fills it out a little bit different, but I don't know. This is definitely, of all the Galactus covers, probably one of my least favorites. Worlds within worlds. Kind of a different take on the last issue, where we saw the Silver Surfer almost in this same pose, just flipped to the other side. And once again, Kirby finding a way to make people just standing around talking look interesting. Great background of the city across the waterfront. Lots of good thing panels on here. Smashing the tree stump. I like him looking over his shoulder with a side eye. This is one place where like a spotted white in his eye would have made a lot of difference. Definitely his eye's open because that looks like the pupil of his eye right there. I like this panel a lot too. Just everything that's like so condensed and packed into this like little square. And then shaking his fist, twirling it around. I love all that. Lots of cool space as Galactus is using his searchlight to probe for the Silver Surfer. Yeah, his ship, he's not using his sphere ship in this one. Galactus a little disappointed that he's unable to find the Surfer. Another great shot here. Still not wearing the full pants. I actually kind of like that. I kind of like that he's wearing like the Roman skirt instead of the full purple legs. But inconsistent with this cover where he is wearing the whole purple legs. We didn't see a full body shot of him here. So Galactus decides the Fantastic Four, who are still kind of beneath him at this point. Later stories have Galactus interacting with Reed in particular, like, they know each other well. But in this, he still kind of looks at him as like fleas that somehow were able to divert him for the moment. But he says he's going to compel them to help find the Surfer. And he's going to lift up this island that they were standing on, like a little small island in the harbor. And he just pulls the whole thing up out of the ground. Some great just shots here of like the havoc that he's causing. A whirlpool, getting caught, spinning around in it. Then they get sucked up out of it and pulls them up like into space where they're definitely in pain and they like freeze over. Only the Thing is able to kind of speak, although he should just be thinking. And then finally an explosion. And they find themselves back down on the island, befuddled and confused, when all of a sudden they see three figures coming up out of the water that seem to be kind of copies of them. Then we just get some awesome panels here of them taking each other on, fighting their doppelgangers. I like the doppelganger of the torch. His fire is definitely the Kirby crackle around it. And while they tussle with them, we're going to find out what happened to the Surfer. And he is reducing himself in size to microscopic level into something that's on a slide in Reed Richards' lab. So interesting power he has there. And that's why we're going to get these chemistry models of molecules as the surfer just gets smaller and smaller into the quantum realm, basically, is what he's doing. But they call it the microverse, I believe. Much more defined surfer, too. The Kirby's been drawing the surfer now several times, and our surfboard is very consistent. It wasn't like that paddleboard that he was kind of riding in the first appearance. This is a great panel. I bet in the Mike Allred Silver Surfer series that he did, I bet he looked at this panel pretty closely and really studied it, because this looks a lot like how Mike Allred would draw the surfer later on. Back to the battle with the doppelgangers. You've got kind of a lumpy old Benji. They all look kind of crackly, but they're doing things a little out of character. Like, look at Doppelganger Reed turning his hand into like a bike battering ram. It's like fighting myself, except this version of me is a murderous killer. And that's where you could have just left that. He could have just said that and left out these two of only my own flexibility could have saved me then. So there was no need for that, Stan. No need for that bit of dialogue. Like, now he's going to do like a vice grip and lock on to him. Only problem here is the coloring of the time. It's everybody has to be the same color. Easy to get lost in what's happening there. Great Kirby hands. He's kind of grown his hands there, I think. He's getting squeezed into submission. The torch saves him, and then they realize, hey, we need to switch out. Let's like trade who we're fighting. Because fighting ourselves is not getting us where we need to be. Awesome. Wide stretch. I like when he stretches wide like that, almost like a rubber blanket. Look at this spiky fist down here. Nothing for the thing. You get a great it's clobbering time with it breaking the panel from into the other one. And they're able to drive him back into the water, where I guess they just kind of dissolve. And then Galactus is finally going to contact him. Why'd you have to do that, Galactus? There was no need to do all the doppelganger stuff. Just do this from the beginning. Just playing games. So Galactus is telling him he wants the Silver Surfer, and they have to say where he is. They don't really know, but Ben reacts like he's defending his best friend ever and says, we ain't going to tell you. And Reed's like, whoa, stop. We don't even know where he is. But it's too late because Galactus is, now he's irritated, and he's going to send this planetoid towards Earth that could destroy half the continent. And a couple of terrible panels with Sue, where even Crystal's like, I can't let her know what's going on. This poor, fragile, pregnant woman, what will become of her? I love these issues, but man, I do hate the way that Stan portrayed Sue. So Reed's big plan right here is to reestablish a connection with Reed, is to reestablish a connection with Galactus through thought, more or less. So he's just going to strain and think really hard. I like this panel here of him like really kind of exerting the effort he needs. I mean, you see like the strain in his neck even. And he's projecting his thoughts as hard as he can into space. This is a good transition right here. Kirby will use this later on in the 2001 series. Transitions like that quite a bit. He's able to contact Galactus and basically tell him, like, hey, we'll help you find the surfer. They just need to get back to his laboratory. So Galactus uses his power to just teleport them back to Reed's lab. And Johnny remembers the last time he saw the surfer, he was standing there looking at Reed's note next to this microscope, and Reed is quickly able to surmise that he somehow went into the subatomic world. So they're going to hop in Reed's little shrinking ship here to go look for him. So this is quite the adventure. It's a little more epic in a way than the original Galactus trilogy, I think, but also a little more strung out. Did we really need a whole issue of fighting the Punisher again, fighting doppelgangers? I feel like if you really wanted to, both of those could have kind of been condensed into a single issue and then get into this worlds within worlds. Got a different cover here for some reason. I don't know why they didn't reuse the original cover. It's I guess maybe the original one, the character here has got his back turned facing them. I don't know. It's kind of odd. Ron Wilson did this cover. Makes no sense to me. If you're going to replace a Kirby cover, you better get John Buscema or John Romita or somebody like that to do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this came out in 1975. You could have gotten Herb Trimpe to do it, or John Byrne even, I think, was working at Marvel at that point. Anyway, a lot of good artists, but they picked Ron Wilson to redo this cover. We're going to jump into the Subatomica. And here they are getting on Reed's little shrinky ship. I actually find those other two opening pages more dynamic. The one with the surfer sitting in Alicia's apartment, and the one with them sitting by the water. Even though they're doing something a little bit more adventurous here. Reed must have known he wasn't going to bring Sue. He only built this for 3. I love this shot here, though. This predates 2001 A Space Odyssey, the movie, and I feel like this shot is almost right out of that movie. Kind of a hokey scene here, though, where they shrink down and fly over to the petri dish under the microscope. And Reed's explaining why he even built this ship, which is really just kind of recap to remind you of their encounter with the Psycho Man in an FF annual. And that's why he's building this subatomic machine. But did we really need that explanation? Reed's always inventing stuff like this. Love the splash page of the Silver Surfer. I think this has been reused for various different promotional items and whatnot. Look at the glee and excitement. And the surfer has to be thinking, like, why didn't I do this before? Because he's been so upset that he's stuck on Earth, but going into this subatomic world is just like flying around in space once again. At last I am free. And they blast him for some reason. And even he's confused. Why are they attacking me? They're like, oh, well, we've established that we want contact with him. That's not the best way to go about things, Reed. But essentially, they kind of ground him down on one of these, sort of planets in this subatomic world. It's a really great panel of them rushing towards him, but if they're going at him a little hard, instead of just to talk to him, they're like coming at him, shooting him with flames. Really blasting him. Flame off, Johnny. It's no use. You shouldn't have flamed on to begin with. Reed, what kind of leader are you? Another great thing panel. The hand's a little small right there. Look at the surfer throwing his board here. Great panels overall, but really mindless and pointless action. Why are they attacking him? It makes no sense. They just wanted to talk to him and talk about how Galactus is threatening the Earth. Another great shot of Reed getting knocked silly. And with the FF dispatched of, the surfer's going to just like take off into the spaceways. You have 3 awesome panels. The subatomic molecule stuff there, mixed with some Kirby crackle as he kind of goes off towards the horizon. I love these energy particles coming up from behind his head on this one. And his eyes. His eyes look very alien here. They're bigger. They're kind of hollow. John Buscema would give him more kind of human-shaped eyes. And later artists would even draw him straight up with like eyeballs in there. But Kirby kind of left his eyes like open, like, beacons of light shining through them. And then we get to see the Psycho Man. The Psycho Man first appeared in FF Annual 5, I think. And pretty awesome adventure there. This is his first return in the proper title. These are the kind of faces I feel like when Kirby does this. He's just trying to fill a panel up real quick and he knows he can dash out a face real quick. But this is like a pretty reused thing he'll do. A tight close-up of a face, not of a whole head, just of a face. And I think it was just something to fill out the page real. But the Psycho Man is getting out some kind of thing similar to the Punisher, his own little version of it, and he's going to send it out to take on the FF. And then we're going to get some more action with the Thing taking on this Instructable, or this Indestructible, as it's called. Who's just an automaton, too, that doesn't speak, just bashes. He's going to throw Ben into these cylinders like a ping pong or like a pinball machine bouncing around him. I mean, he's really laying it to the thing. Thing's not even getting a chance to combat it. And then he stuffs the thing down into this like geyser crevice, and he's just gonna wait for it to go off. You see him like just stuck in it, that look on his face, like he knows what's happening, and it blows him up. And yeah, I love this panel here. I love the coloring of it especially. And just so much energy and raw power being used in all of these issues, really. You see the torch just giving a straight Nova blast, or a concentrated Nova blast, and the face getting lost in the energy. This is another Kirby trope that he uses quite a bit. I like this one a lot too. And the coloring works really well on this. Nothing's working though, it just keeps coming. Meanwhile, Galactus is getting impatient, and in this, he actually mentions how he doesn't really want to hurt any other living beings, but he just has to do what he has to do for his own hunger. Uh, Kind of interesting that they were definitely trying to play heavily into that. Like Galactus isn't good or evil; he just is what he is. And while he doesn't necessarily look for inhabited planets, if they happen to be inhabited and they have what he needs, then he's just gonna have to do what he has to do if the hunger is strong enough. And it's getting that way right now with Earth because the Silver Surfer has forsaken him and chosen not to help him find another suitable planet. Great page here too of like faces looking up at the sky. That's a nice tight panel. Several people crammed into it. They must be standing right on top of each other. Look at Reed just screaming right there. So Reed is determined to find the surfer, and he's willing to sacrifice himself to let Johnny and Ben go find him to help save Earth. He's going to launch himself right at the indestructible, and it fades away like so many things before, like the Punisher did before. It's like they kind of get saved a lot of times by whatever it is that's beating the snot out of them, just being like zapped away. And it's the surfer who says, "After eluding you, I return to amuse myself at your frustration." Surfer was feeling a little petty there. He wanted to go, he was annoyed with them attacking him, which he should have been. And then he decided, well, I'm going to go back and just kind of watch them be in misery for a minute. But he overheard what they were saying and has agreed to help Earth by going to help Galactus. But it's not quite over yet, as Reed and Ben and Johnny are still trapped in Subatomica. Back to a Kirby cover. They recolored this one, though. Kind of like that issue 75 was kind of a monochrome or a duotone cover. This one was like that as well, the original print. So they gave it more full color on this version. So if you're into variants, collecting these reprints, they're kind of variants in a way. Wild looking ship right here. Shall Earth endure? Wild looking ship right here. And this is kind of the Psycho Man issue. The majority of this has nothing to do with Galactus, and it's just the three FF members kind of trapped. And you'll notice that last issue, we didn't even see Sue. So that would have been a page that got edited out of the reprint. Whereas in this one, I can't remember if there's a Sue page or not. Loving this, though. The coloring, again, I really like the coloring with the purples and the blues. The Psycho Man looks very alien. Kind of a classic Human Torch shot here. This was used on a cover at one point, even. Not this particular drawing, but a version of this pose. Johnny gives the Psycho Man a blast, but it's not really him. He was using his powers to somehow influence their brain to perceive him being there, but he actually wasn't. Surfer is returning to full size and is returning to help Galactus. Look at this shot of Galactus slumped over. He's having a hard time right here. He's feeling very weak. I love his face and the nebula there in the space. And the surfer's saying like, "No, I'm here. I'll go I'll go get you a planet. All Ben and Johnny and Reed can do is kind of explore this base that the Psycho Man teleported them to and try to find a way out. And that's pretty much what they're doing through here. They're melting doors, knocking them down, or putting a dent in it anyway. And then the Psycho Man opens it up and launches his next attack. Nice shot of the thing right there, charging ahead. Oh, look at this great panel here of him like grabbing the thing by his head, slamming him against the wall. You can feel the force of this motion. Throwing him, even here, Reed catching him. Look at him grabbing onto some things. Great thoughtful way for Reed to use his powers. He's done this before, had to catch Ben. In fact, he probably did it an issue or two ago. But I just like the way he's like holding on to something and stretching back. Different perspective. I feel like a lot of times you see him like from the side or from the back. Nope. This detached from the center there. But once again, not really the Psycho Man. He's just toying with him. Reed's getting annoyed with Ben because he wanted to study it that time, but didn't get the chance. Meanwhile, the Surfer is going to go out and try to find a planet suitable for Galactus. Preferably one that is not inhabited. And he does. I like this, whatever this is coming out of the planet. It's almost like he found a neutron star. But he found what Galactus needs and is going to head back to tell him. Cool establishing shot here of the Psycho Man's domain. Psycho Man looks shaped a little different, like he's got a different suit of armor on or something. His head is now down into his armor. He also has these like crazy looking accordion arms and legs that he's going to use to wail on the thing this time. Another great shot of a head just kind of being enveloped in Kirby crackle. Turning on the air conditioner to cool off the torch. The jet wash blows his flame out. This is a good trope, too, of a character kind of more in the foreground, ducking down as some kind of burst of energy or whatever, waves, wind, water, whatever it needs to be, is washing away something like, right above him off to the side. And Ben's just going to bring the whole thing down. He's like, that's enough. Which this time the Psycho Man is not too thrilled with the idea of whatever it is that's coming down. Surfer returns to Galactus. He's up here in his ship, peering out of his little window bubble. And he thinks because he helped Galactus, he'd let him go roam the cosmos again. But Galactus says, nope, I need you to be where I can find you next time in case I need you again. That's just how it goes. Thanks for helping me, but I'm not giving you anything for it. Very one-sided relationship. Good emotional shot of the Surfer, still bound to Earth at this point. So with the Psycho Man somewhat subdued, Reed pretty much tells him, like, look, there's a thing called Galactus up in the larger world, and if he devours Earth, you're in a petri dish in my lab on that Earth, and it too will just be gone. So for self-perseverance, you need to let us go. And the Psycho Man does something to kind of read his mind and see that it's true and decides to send them back. And thus ends the second threat of Galactus to Earth. Now, Galactus would go on and have an adventure with Thor, taking on Ego, the living planet. And his origin would be told in the pages of Thor as well, which would be reprinted in a Galactus one-shot later on, and then reprinted again in a similar one-shot with a different cover in the 90s. That's it. That's all I got for this story. I hope you enjoyed my abbreviated coverage of it. 4 issues is a lot to cover in one video, but I got more Galactus stories to tell this week. So until next time, read your comics.